Welcome to Lighting for Profits.
All light.
Powered by Emery Allen.
Get rid of your excuses.
Your number one source for all things landscape lighting.
That's where the magic can happen. You can really scale a business.
We really had to show up for each other.
From lighting design, install, sales, and marketing.
You're a scaredy cat salesman, Kurt.
We discuss everything you need to know to start and grow a successful landscape lighting business.
What do you think a hippo has to do with your business, Ryan?
Usually it's some weird childhood thing. Some bully kicks your butt.
I think the key factor here is trust.
Here is your host, Ryan Lee.
All light. Welcome to Lighting for Profits, powered by Emery Allen. I think we might still be the number one landscape lighting show in Carbon County, Utah. Not sure. Went to Carbon County a few weeks ago, so I think we're still number one. Super excited to be here with you guys. Thanks so much for being a part of the show. Thanks for your support. This has been an amazing journey. Every week, I'm so excited that I get the opportunity to be here with you, hanging out, and bring on some amazing guests. And it's amazing how much I learn from my own show. So I'm excited. This week, we've got Mr. John Martin. And, about maybe a year ago, I didn't even know the name John Martin. He owns Gleam Electrical and Lighting Design. Got to know him recently through some experiences that we went through. And this guy is amazing. So make sure you stick around. You're going to want to be part of the show. This is going to be one you're going to want to listen over and over. This guy is a successful business person, also a wordsmith. I mean, I kind of want to hire him to just talk to me about lighting as I fall asleep every night, right? I mean, he's just that good. So excited to have him on. Make sure you stick around because we're going to pick his brain and see some of the things that he's doing to grow his lighting company. So a couple of announcements. Next month, September 12th and 13th, I'll be at the Garden Light LED Dealer Congress. It's a 2-day training. I'll be there myself training. Jan Moyer will be there. So she did admit a while ago on the podcast, maybe a month or two ago, she's getting older. So if you want to hang out with Jan, you want to learn from her, there's not going to be that many more opportunities to do that. That's one of them. So make sure you check out. You can just go to gardenlightled.com to get your tickets for that. Brandon Miles will be there. He helps me teach landscape lighting live. That guy's awesome. He's been in the business for over 25 years. It's just going to be a great event. So come see me there. And then, of course, if you're interested, by the way, if you're thinking, should I join Landscape Lighting Secrets? Should I not? I don't know. Well, September 20th and 21st is our first annual members only event. So if you're on the fence and you're like, should I join? Yes. The answer is yes. Join and do it now so that you can come September 20th and 21st to our first annual members only event. It's going to be in Nashville. It's going to be sick. We always overspend and overdeliver. We never make money on our events, but there's a good time. So that's what it's all about. And if you want a free strategy session, you're like, I don't know even what Secrets is, just go to landscapelightingsecrets.com, schedule a free strategy session with me, and we can fill you in on the details. So busy time coming up. Got a lot of travel coming up, but I'm excited because I like being out. I like meeting people, and it's going to be really, really good. So, of course, before we get started, I want to thank Emery Allen for their partnership. All right. What's the best way to stand out of the crowd? Well, throw a dance party. Probably. I don't know. But being different, right? So set yourself apart from others in the lighting industry and impress your customers by installing Emery Allen bulbs in your next project. You'll discover a higher level of quality across the board, from the bulbs themselves to the top-tier customer support you can expect if you get any issues or have any questions. Right now is the perfect time to change. In fact, everywhere I go, I'm running into more and more people that are using Emery Allen. So what do you have to lose? Just email Tom G at emeryallen.com and he'll help you get your account set up and get your discounted contractor pricing. Make sure you do mention Lighting for Profits, because if you just go to their website and buy, I mean, that's fine, but they're just going to make more money and you're going to make less. So email Tom G at emeryallen.com, mention Lighting for Profits, and he'll get you hooked up with the discounted contractor pricing. All right, guys. Again, in just a few minutes, we've got John Martin. Guy's a total stud. I promise you, you're going to get a lot of value out of this, so stick around. Excited to have him on. Before we have him on, I want to talk about something real quick. A couple of weeks ago, I had the opportunity to do a webinar with AOLP. So if you're not familiar with the AOLP, go check them out. Association of Outdoor Lighting Professionals. It's a growing industry community, right? And there's an annual event, and they have webinars throughout the year, and a Facebook group and all that stuff. So I had the opportunity. I was grateful that I got to teach a webinar, and it was on pricing. So the title of it was how to add 25% to your bottom line without working harder. And I was like, when I was writing the title for it, I was like, what could I put that would, be attractive? Because, that's what you got to do with marketing and stuff. And honestly, I wanted to put like double your profits and maybe triple. But then I was like, people will be like, no, that's too good to be true. That guy doesn't know what he's talking about. He can't do that. So I decided to like back off. I was like, oh, 25%. That sounds reasonable. But 25% is weak, you guys. Of course, we can add 25% to your bottom line, right? And so I asked the participants, is it okay if I over deliver? And boy, did we over deliver. We over delivered like crazy because, to be honest, if you implement some of the things that I want to share with you today, you can add way more than 25%. Okay. And so obviously, I don't have time to go into all the details, and you should just contact AOLP, and you can actually get that webinar when you join. But what I do want to fill you in is kind of the highlights. Okay. So what I talked about, because I want to share at least one of the strategies that you guys can implement today after just listening to this. But before we even got into the whole pricing thing, the first slide I talked about was your mindset, your why, what's your dream life, what's your belief statement. And I'm sure people were like, did I sign up for the pricing webinar or the mindset webinar? Right. And, yeah, you did sign up for the pricing webinar, but guess what? It all starts with your mindset. It all starts with your dream life. Listen, there's things that you have to do in business that are hard, right? Every single day, almost every single hour and minute, I feel like it's hard, right? It's just like, when is it going to get easy? And sometimes it's so hard to do that you need to understand your why, right? And when it gets hard, you're going to just quit and give up and keep doing the things that you've been doing because you don't really understand your why. And so I want to encourage you guys to do that. And there's a belief statement that I have that I shared with everyone, and it's super simple. It just asks a few questions. It's like, why are you better than anyone else in your market, right? And you might be like, well, my competitors they're pretty good. No, this is your time to get an ego. This is your time to be like, no, I am the best, and here's why. Because if you're not convinced that you're the best, how are you going to convince your customers that they're the best, that you're the best, right? And it's hard to charge a premium price if you don't offer something different. So if you think that, you're just the nice guy and, everyone is great in the community and your competition's nice and they offer great things too, then maybe you shouldn't be in business. Maybe you should go work for your competitor, right? You have to get a little bit egotistical here, right? So why are you better than your competition? And what is another question is, what is the potential consequence of your potential client not moving forward with you, right? Well, a couple things come to mind. They could go with your competition. They could not do anything, right? That's almost like terrible, because if they don't have light, how is that going to impact their life? You see, I'm convinced that everybody in the world needs landscape lighting. Everybody. Now, not everyone can afford it. Okay, that's fine. But everybody needs it, right? It's not only going to help with safety and security and the regular stuff that you hear, but it's going to help with their mental health. Okay. Lighting solves so many problems, right? It can help with depression and all sorts of different things. And so I truly believe that everybody needs landscape lighting. And I want you to be convinced that everyone needs it, not just wants it and gets it if they're bored and they're rich or whatever. Like, everybody needs landscape lighting. Okay. And so mindset is crucial. And then we got into like, okay, let's get into some numbers, right? And I showed people how this business thing and pricing thing is just a giant math equation, right? And so if you're charging, let's just throw out some numbers. You're charging like $250 a light. A lot of people will tell me I'm charging $250 a light, and they're like, yeah, I make like 50%. I'm like, you don't make 50%. Right. That's just not, that's not happening. Now, maybe if you're a one-man show and you don't pay taxes and you don't pay people and you steal materials and stuff like that, yeah, maybe there is a way that you're making that much money. But at the end of the day, after you pay yourself what you should pay yourself as a business owner, after you pay your bills, after you pay all these things, how much is really left in your business? the majority of people, it's way lower than you think, which is one reason why most businesses don't last more than 5 years. They can't afford to go into year 5 or 6 or 7, right? And so what's crazy about this is most businesses are making less than 10%. So think about that. If you raise your price by just 10%, just 10%. So let's say you're charging $250 a light right now. You just have to raise your price by $25 a light. So you go up to $275. You're literally going to double your profits because your profits are 10% or less right now, right? I mean, it's crazy. It's just math, right? And if you're like, well, I'm already making 40%, well, then a 10% price increase is going to raise your profitability by 25%. That's still huge, right? And so play the numbers game, make this work for you. One of the things that I gave away as well was helping people understand how much does it cost you to put a light in the ground? Like how much does it cost you to wake up in the morning? I remember the first time I did this exercise, my number was over $2,000. It was like $2,200 a day. And then we grew and ended up being over 3,500 and even 4,000 just to wake up. Like before we even like say hello to everybody, like, oh, there's $4,000, right? Your number may not be that high, but I don't mind that my number's high because that means I'm making more money, right? So I'm like, hey, how do I get that to 5? Because that means I can make more money, right? But understanding your daily overhead number is really is crucial because this helps you understand what your pricing should be. And one of the tips here is really just figure out what your annual expenses are, divide it by the total number of working days that you have in your market, which is not 365. It's not even 300. It's not even 250. Most of you are in a market that you can maybe have 240 working days at max. Like, I mean, you got to think about like vacations, sick days, weather days, all these types of things. So the best number to use is like 200 or 210 because it's conservative. And then if you say, well, I'm going to work 210 days and you end up working 235, great. That's 25 extra days of gravy that your overhead was already applied to. And now you just get pure profit. Now your profit margins go through the roof, right? And so this is a really good exercise for everyone to do. I have a lot of people that reach out. Hey, you talk about working on your business versus working in your business. What does that mean? Like, let's say I want to work on my business today. Well, this is an activity that I would consider working on your business, right? Where you're thinking strategically. You're not going out and designing. You're not installing. You're not putting out fires. You're not doing the day-to-day in the business. You're working on your business to plan for growth and you're putting a strategy together, right? And then another thing I'll mention is this is huge, you guys. When you do your daily overhead number, most people will figure out what their daily overhead number is, and maybe yours is smaller, maybe yours is $500, right? And you're like, sweet, 500. That means I can charge less than my competition because I don't have to charge more. And trust me, the reason I know this because I did this for years. This was like my strategy for the first 5 years, and I would tell people that, I'm like, we don't have to, we're lower priced. And here's why. We don't have the overhead and all this stuff that they have. So we can give you a better experience for a less price. And I'm like, I used to say that? Like, yeah, I did. It was terrible, but it actually worked when you're young, right? But then what I found was there's a gap where I couldn't get out of the trap. I'm like, why can't I make any money? Can't figure this out. Well, it's because I wasn't charging enough to be who I wanted to be. You see, I wanted to be like those larger companies, but I couldn't afford to hire someone to answer the phones. I couldn't afford to hire a technician that wanted crazy money. I couldn't afford to hire a salesperson. It's because I wasn't charging enough. So when you do your daily overhead, yeah, maybe right now you don't have $40,000 a year for an office manager or someone to answer the phones, but put it in there anyway. Maybe you're not paying a salesperson $100,000 a year right now. Put it in there anyway. And magically, you'll see when you have a $3,500 a day nut to cover, how you're able to overcome that. And it gives you confidence in your pricing to know that, you know what, I'm not going to negotiate here. These are my prices, right? So I wish someone would have grabbed me 10 years ago and just shaken me and like punched me in the face until I understood that concept. So I know I just went quick. So if you have to re-listen to that, this is like life-changing stuff right now. And then that's all I got time for, guys. If you want the rest, you got to go join AOLP, go watch the webinar. I don't know what else to tell you. Or join Landscape Lighting Secrets. All right. So enough of the subliminal stuff. I think it's time to get to the point where we get our guest on. If you guys are ready, let me know. I know I'm excited. I hope you are. Let's get the music going and get this guy coming down. Yo, what is up, Mr. John Martin?
What's happening? Good to see you, man.
Oh, it's always good seeing you. Can I just? I actually did this secretly just so I could record your voice.
Hey, good stuff, man. Good stuff. What you're talking about, I love it.
Yeah. Is it any of that resonate with you?
Absolutely. Yeah, I made all the same mistakes. What you were talking about, and a lot of times business owners don't really even understand the true cost of an employee. Just
Oh yeah.
whatever you're paying them hourly at a minimum of 40%.
Yep.
It's your true
Absolutely.
cost. And
Well,
I missed that early on.
Yeah. One of the things that most people miss in that daily overhead is like taxes, right? And you have like a lot of different taxes that they miss, but one of those is that, like, yeah, it's like when you think you're hiring someone for $20 an hour, you expect it to cost you $20 an hour, and then you're like, wait, I have to pay more
That's
to
exactly
the government because like that doesn't even make sense, but it's real,
what it is. Think
Yeah.
about insurance costs, workman's comp, all that stuff costs. When you're small, a lot of times you don't have to worry about it. But if you want to grow, you better worry about it. You better think about it, what it's going to cost you. And pricing it right when you're small is only going to help you to grow when you get bigger as you grow. So
100%. Yeah. Yeah. Everyone forgets about taxes. And I try to every year. I'm like, every quarter, I'm trying to forget about it, but just can't do it. And then another thing that people don't plan for is equipment replacement costs. So, like, I own this saw, I own this shovel. So, like, that I already paid for that. Well, that's true. But what happens when it breaks next week?
yes,
Right.
sir.
I fell into this trap and I was like, where is all this money? And then you start, looking, investigating. It's like, oh, yeah, it's because we bought more tools and we bought more of this. And you just never plan for that as a solo, operator. You just think, dude, I need a shovel and some wire strippers and I'm good to go.
Right. Yeah, you're exactly right, man. I mean, the bigger you grow, the bigger tools you need, the bigger the equipment, and you go from 150 buck to $3,000 equipment, and it
Yeah.
adds up, and you're shocked. I'm still shocked today. Every time I got to spend money, I'm shocked. But it's
Yeah,
worth
exactly.
it. It's good to invest in your company. Good to invest in people that work for you for sure.
100%. Yeah. I think that's another thing I kind of overlooked. I just always assumed like, like, because when I was an employee, I just was like, well, if I go do this, I get the paycheck. I was very linear. It's like, just do this for
Right.
this. And
Right.
I personally didn't care too much about like the feeling of fitting in and culture and stuff like that. So
Sure.
because of that, I didn't really do much of that because I thought everyone was like me, which is obviously not true.
Right.
And so, yeah, when you really sit back and realize, okay, people don't always, even though they say they want more money, that's not. I mean, they'll leave your job and get paid less somewhere else because they get treated better.
Absolutely. Man, that's so true. I mean, you think people just have character, hey, I'm going to work here and I'm going to put in a good hard day's work and I'm going to get paid this amount. And if you have a good culture and people enjoy working where they're at, they're heard and they're rewarded and appreciated, man, that goes a long way. I mean, think about, are you more motivated to work for somebody that tells you, man, I really appreciate what you did on this job, man, that was really great, and recognize you in front of your peers? I mean, a lot of us would say, well, I don't really need that, but it sure is nice to get it, right? It's nice to get that award. And when you do that, it just builds better morale and better employees. So, and it'll keep the right ones around, and the ones you don't really don't care anyway. So,
Yeah, exactly. That's cool. All right. So tell us a little bit about yourself. I got the opportunity to meet you this last year, first online. I know my wife thinks it's weird I meet guys online, but I met you online. And then we got to hang out together in person and stuff.
Yeah.
But tell us about before we go over that, tell us about Gleam. When did you start and why did you start the business?
Yeah, so August 2018, August 18th of 2018, we started. So it'll be our 5th full year in this next week.
Nice.
And
Congratulations.
thank you. Thank you. It's been fun. It's been miserable. It's been tearful, happy, joy, you know, all the emotions, but I wouldn't change anything. If I had to go back, I wouldn't change anything as far as what my occupation would be. But I got my palette, you know, going when I worked for Lighthouse Landscape Lighting with Tim Ryan. And Tim's actually a friend of mine, great guy. And I was in the corporate world, got promoted several times and led a big division. I really got burned out. And we were doing lunch one day and I'm like, man, I'd do anything to do something like you're doing. And because he'd always show me pictures of his designs and stuff. I'm like, that's so cool. You got to come do my house. I just love that. I was just mesmerized by what they were doing and asked thousands of questions. He's like, you know, I'm like, man, I'd come work for you. I don't want to lead anything. I would love to do lighting. I'll sell lighting. He's like, I couldn't afford you. I'm like, you'd be surprised, man. It's not about the money with me. It's about doing something I love. And I really love what you do. He goes, really? Yeah. So we came together with an agreement, man. And I ended up working for him. Great guy. I mean, he's an amazing designer. And so I got taught right. And it wasn't so much for sales for me as it was about the design. And I really learned, you know, the different atmosphere that you can change for people. And I was passionate about lighting in the beginning, like before I even was involved. I was, hey, show me more of those pictures, you know?
Yeah.
What's your latest project that you did? I just couldn't believe how cool it was. Well, that passion, you know, that I had for it, just, man, I was like a duck to water. I just jumped right in and I just loved it. I didn't have to sell anything. I didn't feel pressure to sell anything. I just was passionate about what we could do for folks. And so Tim really encouraged me to go out on my own, probably to get rid of me. No, but he's like, I had it.
Like, weren't you going to start your own thing at some point?
Right. It was like the first week he was already pushing me out the door. No, man, but he just did because Tim saw something special in me, you know, and I'm the last person to brag about me. I mean that. I mean, I'm very confident what I do and who I am. But Tim was like, John, you could really take this to another level because I have an electrical portion of this that Lighthouse didn't have, and most lighters don't. But so we started off in August 18th, 2018. And my wife started it with me. She was really into Christmas lighting, so she started that right away. And I began the career as a lighting designer and just went out there and made it happen.
Yeah, it's been awesome. As I've gotten to know you, I'm like, okay, in a relatively short period of time, 5 years, you know, depending on where you're at in your journey, sometimes you're like 5 years seems like a long time, but it's not that long. You guys have had some amazing success. Why, like, how are you having that when others have been in the industry 10, 15 years, 20 years and not hitting the numbers and the success that you guys are?
You know, that's a great question, man. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of people asking that question. It's an excellent question. And for me, the way that I look at it, there was never landscape lighting secrets. There wasn't a Ryan Lee out there training people. I think a lot of guys that were in the lighting business 5 and 10 years ago, they just did their thing, right? And it was relatively new, although it wasn't. Like in the Midwest, it was relatively new because you go to Florida, everybody lights up their home.
Right.
I mean, you go to hotels, everything's lit up. Well, not so much in the Midwest 10 years ago. So you had a few pioneers out here. And I just think that what happens is they stay a 1-man or 2-man crew and they're happy with that lifestyle. And if that makes you happy and that's where you're at, great. It's all about, doing right by the customer, but at the end of the day, your sanity and what you like to do and the ease of life that you want. For me, I like to build, and I never would have dreamed we'd build it as big as we are. I wasn't like, hey, I want to be the biggest and the best, but I wanted to be the biggest and the best.
So it was like out of the gate, you were already thinking like, I don't want to do everything myself. I want to build a team.
Absolutely. Because I didn't have the time to accomplish everything that I wanted to accomplish. And I loved it so much that you sometimes what happens is you love it so much and you have lack of trust for other people. So then you hoard everything and you're limited. So you have to replace yourself. You have to train people and mentor people and teach them the right ways and find great mentors like you to help them through these steps so that they can help others through the steps. And in our case, the way we met and everything, it was just a great fit for my team to have you. But my point is if John Martin is the only one that knows how to design and has the passion for it, and then the install part, and I'm doing everything, well, yeah, I could keep doing that, but I wanted to duplicate that. And so right away, I start out with my son. He works for us, and he was 16 at the time. He works for us today. He's a project manager now, but he was out there with me on the weekends, helping me work. And I was teaching him little things here and there. And instead of going to college, he wanted to work in the business. So
That's awesome.
yeah,
It's cool. I was sitting here listening to you talk, and I think that's one of the things that I really love about you. In the industry, I feel like there's almost like two camps. There's like the artist camp, designer, and then there's kind of like business, which I feel like there's not a lot of business. That's why I'm like doing my thing, right?
yes.
But it's interesting because you have this unique thing about you where you have the artist ability, desire, drive, like it like seeps out of you. It's who you are. But then you've been able to balance it and say, yeah, it doesn't have to be me. I don't have to be the only artist on the team. We can actually build a business of artists. So I think that's the thing that really draws me to you is like, it's a very unique attribute that you've been able to master that I haven't seen really any other be able to do that. They're either like more hardcore business or more hardcore design, where I don't know that either one of those is the best way. I think kind of merging those is where you're going to get most success.
Ryan, you're too kind, man. I appreciate the kind words. I mean, I'm just a Midwest humble guy, and I do appreciate that. And a pat on the back always goes a long way. It sure
It's
does.
killer. It's amazing. It really is.
But I'll tell you, you're exactly right. And I think the edge is I come from a sales background, and I don't believe that lighting design is a sales pitch. I believe it's an emotion and a feeling. And I believe that listening and asking a lot of questions and gaining information and then presenting with passion, true passion, not this built up. Lighting's got to be a part of you. You could certainly be a business owner and make money, but find somebody who has passion for it. They'll sell a lot more for you. And I've always felt like, look, I'm doing some crazy stuff with lighting. I need somebody crazy enough to try to install it. Like, yeah, we're going 30 foot up into that tree, and yeah, we're going to cut branches down, and things like that. And that's where I found Andy, because he's crazy. He'll go do it, right? But I'm always wanting to pass that baton. I am very vested in seeing the proper lighting done, and I love seeing successful businesses do it. There's nothing like seeing an amazing design where you're going, wow, who did that? But they have 3 crews and they're running, but they never lost that touch, right? I mean, it's kind of like you think about some of these businesses that are multi-billionaire business. They started somewhere and they had to have that passion somewhere, and it got big, and that's great. But I never want to leave it to where, wow, John left, so everything's gone. No, I want the younger generations to really get into it and understand business, Ryan. And honestly, that's where you've been a blessing, because my son-in-law already, Andy. Hey, Andy, thanks for watching, by the way.
What's up, Andy? Good to see you on here.
Oh, buddy. Yeah. So,
He's
but
a total
anyway,
stud, by the way. That guy.
Go ahead.
The thing is, I feed off other people's energy.
Yeah.
So if people are excited about something, it gets me excited, and then
Right.
I get them excited. So it just builds. He is amazing. Like, he's got amazing energy.
Yeah.
If I had my own lighting business right now, I'd be trying to steal him from you.
Well, they've tried, man. Believe you me.
They probably have.
Yeah. But I mean, that's why, because we run an electrical side of this, commercial, residential, big time. I've got 11 electricians for us. So my time is spread thin, so I have to time management much better. So what I saw the advantage of is allowing you to be that mentor. And I think it's a great tool to have. And to me, it's needed in the lighting business. If you're a lighting designer and you don't understand business, you need a Ryan in your life to understand business and help you with that. If you're all business and no passion, get into Illy or Ellie, get in and learn. Go to these, I don't know what they're lunch and learns or whatever they are, where you're going, Garden Light, the one that you talked about. Call up Emery Allen. Tom will walk you through things. I mean, by the way, love Emery Allen. That's all we use. His stuff
Cool.
is amazing.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Nice.
That's all we use.
That's
Aside
awesome.
from some Garden Light stuff, and others, but for
Yeah.
any drop-ins, I use Emery Allen. But anyway, to your point, Ryan, it's so true. It's segmented into either amazing lighting designers, and I've gone against those that have great lighting designing concepts, and I'm like, yeah, this is a great design, but that extra passion and desire to be able to connect with the customer puts you over the edge a little bit.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that there's such a correlation between sales and design and that passion that you hear when you're selling any product, the trainers will tell you people buy on emotion, and they defend it with logic. So it kind of works out that landscape lighting is such an emotional experience. And when someone gets that before and after, that hit of like, whoa, like what is that? That is emotion. That's when you close a deal, right? So some of the designers, the artists in the industry, if they understood that a little bit more, then their sales could go through the roof. They could do whatever they wanted. And some of them are like, no, I don't care, because they, like you mentioned, like they're just kind of want to stay in that bucket. That's fine.
Yeah.
But then it's like, well, what are you going to do when you get sick, or when you want to do something else, or you can't go do something? And that's why I think you're very smart in that you've built this business to have that passion, to have the artistry side to it, but you're running it like a business that knows you need cash flow and all these other things that go in accordance with the business to help it grow. And why would you not want to impact more lives? Like, why would you not want to help other people? If I'm going to go present a lighting proposal to someone, a new design, I'm not okay with them saying no, because they're going to go with someone else. And like, I know how good my design, my install, my service, all that's going to be.
That's awesome, man. And it's so true. I mean, you've got to really want that and know that, hey, I am better, and here's why I am better. And our Google review shows that we're better.
Nice.
We work hard for those, right? And so I think that's imperative. And I'll give you a great example, man. And this is anybody out there that's been in business a long time in the lighting, and no matter what business you're in. I know a guy that retired in Indianapolis. He was here for 20 something years. He was selling his business of 20 years. I think he was asking $75,000 for it.
Wow.
I believe he got less than half of that from somebody.
After 20 years.
Absolutely. He had no plan. He wanted to retire. I'm like, how are you going to retire on that money? Like, what? He goes, well, this is all the accountant said. He goes, I'm so surprised. I'm blown away. I thought I was at least worth $500,000. You ought to do your due diligence and find an end game. My end game, I want to pass it on to my children. I want them to have it because they have a desire and passion to do it. So I'm teaching them to do it right. But if you don't, you got to figure out your end game and go, hey, do I want to retire one day? At what age do I want to retire? So I better start doing some things that are good habits in order to make sure that my company's worth enough so I can retire.
Well said. I love that. That's great. Let's talk about where you and I met. We decided to. Well, I guess you had gone through Ellie with Mark Carlson before, and then you were a mentor. That's what it was. And I decided, you know what? Like when I ran my business, I was heavy on business. And I look back and I'm like I've had actually people I'll show them some of the projects I did, and they're like, actually, you're like you actually knew what you know what you're talking about, you know? And I'm like, I did I'm proud of my projects, you know, but sometimes I didn't know why. Like I would light stuff, but I didn't know why. And that's some of the things that I want to talk about.
Yeah.
But Ellie was kind of my first eye opener of like, okay, like here's how I can still teach the things that I think are super valuable to the lighting community, but now I can incorporate a lot of these design really cool things and be more intentional.
Yes.
So how did you come across Ellie, and how did you get involved with that?
Man, I mean, actually through LinkedIn, I was posting some, photos of work that we did. And of course, I think our second or third year, I think it was our 2.5 years or something like that. I just entered into AOLP's, design competition and I won.
Okay.
I couldn't
Nice.
believe it. I won. So
That's awesome.
I was like, wow, I didn't even know what it was. You know what I mean? And I became a member. I'm like, I just was always so busy. I never took time that I should have. Right. I never took time that I should have, Ryan. And I'm glad that I am taking more time to go to these. But I would post on LinkedIn, and Mark came across my photo and he got a hold of me. He's like, man, tell me about your business. I looked at your website and what you got going on, man. Tell me more about you. And I entered into his competition and I won a couple awards with him. And then he was talking about, he was
Like,
talking.
turns out I actually know what I'm doing here. This is good stuff.
Right. Well, it's validation, isn't it? It's like,
Yeah.
wow, there's people out there, like, I highly respect these people. Mark's like, he's on a pedestal to me, right? And a lot of guys and girls that are lighting designers. And when they appreciate your work, man, it's like, wow, so he said, look, I'm going to start this, lighting composition training, and it's design centric. And I'm like, dude, I love it. And I saw your book. I'm going to buy your book. I bought his book. I read his book. Love it. And a lot of things I was naturally doing. I didn't know what to call it or what it meant, but I was doing it. And I thought that was really cool. And a lot of stuff I wasn't doing that I've implemented. So I went through that class and he's like, hey, man, I would love for you to be a mentor. And then I passed out and my wife had to wake me up off the floor. I'm like, what? Cardiac arrest. I'm
That's
like,
awesome.
Mark, are you sure, bro? And he's just super cool guy. I love him to death. And he's smart, artistic. He's an artisan with light, just amazing. And then that's where he had me sit in, and you were in that class. And what I loved about you stuck out to me was you're so transparent. You're so honest. Like, hey, I just sold lighting, man. I couldn't tell you this, that, and the other. And
I was like, if there's a tree, it needs a light. So then there was that project that Tim Ryan did, and it was an amazing project. There's this Japanese maple, which was not lit. And I was like, how do you even, like, if I see a Japanese maple, like, it's obviously getting an uplight on it. Like, there's no question. And he had the balls to not light it, and it looked amazing. But I was just like blown away. I'm like, yeah, like, no, if there's a tree, it needs at least one. It usually needs like 3 or 4 lights on it.
Oh my goodness, man. Design is subject, right? I mean, there's no really right or wrong. Mark will say that. Jan Moyer will say she has a right and wrong. She will say what's right and wrong. But when
Yeah, she's actually told me when I'm wrong. But
yeah.
and I think you were there for that. So with Mark, he says that because he tries to be a nice guy. But the thing that I really appreciate about it is he did define some standards, which before that I was like, you can tell me that you don't like this, but I love it and my client likes it, so you can shut up, right? But
Yeah.
with his standards, it's like, no, like according to this, and this, that's actually not the best lighting design. If you added this, it would be amazing. It's good, but it could be amazing with this. So I actually appreciated that. And that's some of the stuff I started learning is really design intention. And like, what if I did leave a light or a tree without a light, which is still really hard for me to do. I'm like addicted to lights still. I'm like, light,
Right.
light, you get a light, you get a light, you get a light. Like that's how I am. But the design intention was huge, and coming up with those parameters to say, okay, maybe lighting isn't as subjective as we all say. Maybe there are some things that really make a really good lighting design come together. That's
No,
the things
absolutely.
I love.
No, you're exactly right. I mean, it's subjective to the designer when you've reached that design stage. So in other words, some guys will light a tree and some guys won't, and they both have their intention. Maybe the focal point is behind it. One of the biggest things I learned is if you're lighting something, say you got a patio and you have bushes around your patio, or you have a tree that's close by, but you have trees beyond that and you want your eye to go through, don't overlight that first tree. Really underlight it so that your eye passes through and you really see your focal point instead of competing with it. Does that make sense?
I love that. Yeah. No, I love
And
it.
and there are parameters. Like, I would tell anybody, if you're a landscaper and you're just selling fixtures right now and you want to know, like, hey, you're a good businessman, but you're like, hey, I really want to be above and beyond. I really want to deliver amazing design. You ought to take these courses without question, because it gives you the principles of composition, the
Yep.
contrast, the emphasis, the movement, the unity, the harmony, the rhythm and balance.
You're so good. Star student right here. That's why I was like, if you would have asked me all those, I would have been like, the rhythm, the composition. Like I'm still a work in progress over here. Okay.
No, man.
You're like so smooth. Like I would hate to sell against you because I would just give up. Like, oh, you already talked to John Martin? Yeah. Okay. All right. I'm done.
Oh, don't say that, man. I've lost plenty, but it's that's, I mean, we had fun in that class. It was a lot of fun, and it's interactive. And everybody, like, when I first took it, it was the first class that he had ever done. So I was a little more reserved because I'm like, guys are going, yeah, I've been in it 22 years, and this guy's in it 12. And I'm like, at the time, I'm like 4 years, I was the youngest. So I was kind of a little timid in ways because I'm like, I'm going to say something stupid. But I could identify what looked horrible. I could easily, and I even noticed a few things that nobody else did. And Mark recognized that. And I was like, cool. I thought everybody recognized some of these principles. And I just didn't know what to call them, right?
Yeah.
I didn't know that was an emphasis point or a focal point. I would call it focal point, but they use emphasis. It's all in the same. But
I'm the same way. I remember looking at some projects and I'm like, okay, I can tell that's bad. And here's why I think it's bad. And it was harder to identify why. I knew what a project looked good, but again,
right.
learning like why and how to explain that to a client, I think is huge. The lingo, learning some of these words. I learned a lot from you online at Mark's course, and also in person as we're trying to present these things when we were at Illy and stuff.
It's fun.
Like writing down, okay, what would John say here? Okay, he would say mystery and intrigue. So I was like, how do I say mystery and intrigue in a sentence? Like I've never done this in my life,
You did great, man. That was so much fun. I'll tell you what, the spring one, we're gonna have Andy go to the spring one. So hopefully you go.
I know I'm going to be, so talking about Illy, I'll be in November. I'll be at the Houston one. I
Okay.
don't know. Haven't thought that far in the future about the spring yet.
We are so slam busy at that time. It's just like there's just no way. we can-
Especially, yeah, it is a tough time, especially if people are doing holiday lighting. They're not, they're less likely to come to the November one. Well,
Right.
so one of the things I liked about Ellie is that one, it's online. So if you can't
Yeah.
commit to going somewhere or traveling, it's online. You can do it from your house. I also liked that you were there. Anthony was there. It was nice to have like you guys chime in with like a different perspective than Mark, because sometimes when you're someone like Mark, like when I start spewing business stuff that I'm like, oh yeah, everyone knows what I'm talking about. They're like,
Right.
no, like no one knows what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So that was nice to have like other people chime in as mentors to say, oh, this is how I feel. And I'm like, oh, well, that makes sense to me.
Right.
So it was awesome. I definitely would recommend people get there. It's online. Then the other one where then I was like randomly, I don't even know if we knew each other were really going to Illy, but
Right.
we show up at Illy, which the advantage there is it's in person, which
Yeah.
is cool, but
Yeah.
costs more money and time and all that. So it's
Right.
not that doesn't work out for
It was
everyone. But
intense. It was intense.
they call it the intensive course for a reason, I guess.
I mean, it was morning till night.
I was exhausted.
I was dude. I was just I was like in a vegetative state on the way home. I was just
I
like,
know.
man,
Like
I
the last day, they were speaking about something that I told them, I said, you could have been telling me how to make $10 million. I didn't listen. I was there, but I didn't take anything in.
exactly right, man. It's so true. It's like, oh boy. But it was awesome. It was a great experience. And boy, a lot packed into it. I actually remember seeing you try to climb a tree at
Yeah,
one point.
that's a good way to put it. Try to climb a tree.
You made it up though.
Yeah, I made it up 10 feet or whatever that was, 20 feet. That was exhausting.
Oh
Maybe
man.
that's why I was so tired. That's why I couldn't keep my eyes open during the last session, because I had tried to climb the tree hours before, and I was like, I think I'm going down, guys.
I would say I feel we had probably one of the most difficult portions of that project.
I think so too. It was
It
hard.
was really, yeah, it was different.
Stuck in between two others, trying to
Yes,
make ours fit in without taking away from the showstopper, and
right.
it was challenging.
Lovers feeling like a fool.
Yeah. Exactly. I
Uh,
learned a lot from you there, and you were there just as an attendee, but literally I learned a lot from you. And
oh, that's cool. I learned
I'm
a
not
lot.
kidding. I'm not kidding when I say I'm like I had that whole like, we each had a chance to present or whatever. And at first I was like, I don't want to present.
Mhm.
I just want someone else to have opportunities to talk. I talk for a living, like
Right.
whatever. And then people are like, no, you got to do this section. So I'm like, okay, I'll do a section. And I don't know what you did. I prepared, like I wrote stuff on my phone, my notes. I went back to my room and I was rehearsing it. And I was like thinking of all these things. And I was like, okay, he said, we create a scene of, I don't even remember now, but however you said it was amazing. I wrote it down, mystery and intrigue, mystery and
Yeah.
intrigue. And
Yeah.
then I went to say it and it came out wrong and I screwed it up and I was like, we're just trying to make this place look amazing. And like, I don't know. I don't have the words. Like you are a true wordsmith. And I literally, if I was good to go sell lighting today, before I go in the appointment, I'd be like, okay, what would John like? Give me some words. What would John say? Because I think it's magical. I think people they like that. It's different. It's unique.
Yeah. I kind of likened it. I've always kind of been like it's design, right? So if I were an interior designer, I would be very, I would choose my words to make my client feel like this is the space and how they're going to feel with the different colors and palettes and patterns or whatever. And so why would the outside be any different? And I've been with a few people that were not so good in presentation, but had great ideas.
Hmm.
And I thought, boy, I love the ideas, but you need to communicate them in such a way that hits them emotionally. And one thing that a lot of people don't do is listen. just if somebody's talking about, boy, when I get home, I'm exhausted, I work long hours, and I just like to sit outside. And I'm like, how do you want to feel when you sit outside? I want to feel like I'm at a hotel. I want it to be tranquil. And I go, okay, great, okay. And then what's next? Then so what else are you looking for in this space? And things like that. And then when I do my design and I go back, I'll say, Mrs. Jones, you had mentioned you wanted your back patio area to feel like a hotel and that you wanted it tranquil. Am I correct? Yeah. Right. When somebody repeats what you said from a week or two earlier, it lends you some credibility because you really listened and cared. And I think that connection happens when that happens, right? It
I love
just
it. I love it too that you're asking the right questions. You're listening, but you're also asking the right questions, because if you're like, so what do you think? That's a bad question, because now they're thinking with logic instead of feeling with emotion. And so your question of like, how does that make you feel? How do you want to feel?
right.
Would this make you feel like you want? Those are like, I mean, that's why like the combination of sales and design is like
Yes.
amazing, right?
It
And so
is.
when you do it the right way, again, you get an artist who's like, hey, what do you think? Well, they're not going to close any business. They're not going to help anyone get their experience, right? But you
Yeah.
get someone who's asking them, how do you want to feel, and how do you think that would make you feel? And like that you didn't just put up with one answer, you asked again and dig and dig. Like those are great strategies. I hate to say the word strategy, but it's a strategy to help people feel what you're trying to help them feel.
Sure. Absolutely, man.
So good.
And it is good, and it feels good doing it because you're really solving a problem and creating an atmosphere that's emotional and can yeah, I you said it earlier in your opening, that it is a physical. I mean, light can really help people mentally, um, biological, physical, emotional. It fits all those needs. You think about it, we're really reactive to light, and we're drawn to it, right? Our eyes are drawn to it. So balance is really important to that because you don't want somebody focusing on one thing. You want them to be able to scan and see many different things and easy on the eyes so that you can rest your eyes at night instead of making them overwork for the bright spots or the light bombs as we call them. So man, the more that you can pick up on that, and some people don't know and they expect a designer to know. I don't know what I need. If you
Yep.
say, well, what are you looking for? Well, I just want the front of my house lit. Okay, that's fine. I always ask why, why am I here? What
Yeah.
what made you call me? What was it about us? Oh, I saw you online, or we Googled you, or saw your reviews, or man, I was on. What did you like about the photos that resonated with you that you liked? Oh, this one photo. Well, let me go through it. I'll show them. They're like, yeah, that one right there. I want my house to look like that. Okay, we can do that. Not a
So
problem.
good. I hope people are taking notes right now, because you're saying it like it's no big deal, but asking people these questions, why am I here? Why today
Yeah,
is the day to consider lighting? Like
yeah,
something happened. And if you don't identify the problem, they know there's a problem, but if you don't really isolate that problem and expose it, make that pain, then what problem are you solving? Because if you're not solving a problem, then you might as well leave.
abs-
That's what we do as business owners. We solve problems, and the people who solve the most problems win at the end of the day.
yes,
So
yes,
you're saying this stuff like, oh yeah, you just ask them this and ask them this. Like, no, these are big things that are small. They're small things that turn into big things. And most people overlook. They get there and they're like, all right, so here's the sales pitch. Let's go. And it's like, well, no, that you don't even need a sales pitch if you ask the right questions.
yes, sir. And you need to know your audience, and that's a whole other thing. If you I mean, you get an engineer. He's not much into feeling. He wants to know how the system works, what's the warranty on it, how far are you gonna dig, where's this gonna go, how many lights you talking about, blah blah blah. And when you're going, oh, I'm gonna make you're gonna sit back here. He already know yeah, that's why I have you here. Like he's not gonna necessarily buy into that, he or she, because they're more analytical thinking, like very factual. So you got to kind of know who you're dealing with and connect with them that way. And you become a bit of a chameleon. You got to be all things to all men. And
Love it, man. This is good stuff. I love it. Let me bounce back to Illy real quick. You said one of your bigger takeaways from Ellie was, having like a destination and kind of the intent and things like that. What's your bigger takeaway about the in-person Illy event or experience?
what I thought was really cool is it's all in real time. You're actually applying what you learned in the classroom outdoors, and that's immediate. So you see instant results, and you're working with others, and you have your mentor, of course, and they're putting their input, but being very, casual about that because they wanted us to come up with the designs and the thoughts. I love the collaboration. The content was amazing. It was a lot in 1 week, but the collaboration and putting it all together, that's where I learned one of the biggest things I pulled out of there as a designer was the fact of intensity of light, right? You number the intensity of light. You remember that exercise?
That was cool.
Yeah.
Yep.
So like that's when I learned if you have people sitting in an area and within 10 feet is a tree or a Japanese maple, I would tend to put two lights on it. It was, too bright. Whereas I was trying to light something back so their eyes would draw through it, and your eye will not draw through that. It will attract to that focal point. And that was too intense of a light. So they numbered them 1 through 5, I think it was.
Yep.
So I do that now in my designs, and my guys are just starting to catch on, believe it or not, because it's a hard concept to get. So, like, if we're lighting that Japanese maple by the patio where people are sitting at night, that's a 1. But I want that oak tree that's, 40, 50 yards out, maybe further, and that's my focal point. Man, that's a 5. I want that intense.
Yep.
I want downlight, I want uplight, I want that to be my focal point. And then I got to think about balance, right? So that was one of the biggest things because of that exercise.
I thought that was cool. And I
Yeah.
remember actually being in the classroom when we were like doing that exercise. I was like, okay, I think this would be a 1, this would be a 2, a 3. And I don't even think we had 5. I mean, we could use 5, but I don't think our group used
Right.
kind of did 3 or something.
Yeah.
But then when we got out there at night, kind of everything fell apart real quick because like, yeah, on our conceptual design, this made sense. Then we get out there and we're like, well, crap, now we got this group to worry about and this group to worry about and their intensities now. So it's not always a design challenge like that. Sometimes it's a parking lot light over here, another residence. There's always something that does change at night. So that was a really cool exercise.
Yeah, man. That's a good point. It's so true. Especially when you're competing with different types of light that's non-intended, street light, whatever. But yeah, that whole course was amazing. It was an amazing experience. I got to meet you and get to know you, and amongst others that I knew through LinkedIn or whatever. And I was really blessed to see a lot of great designers there. It was just really cool to see guys that have been in it a long time, do a great job, and have made a ton of money doing it.
Yeah, no, it was cool. I learned quite a bit. It was interesting because I had just finished the Ellie course, so I had this stuff on my mind, and I had learned some new concepts and things like that. Even after being in the industry 15 years, learned a ton. And then at Illy, some of those compounded, and I learned even more, having the ability to do in-person stuff. And
Yeah.
I liked, it sounds so dumb now, but like, again, I'm addicted to lighting anything. So if there's a tree, it's getting a light. But I would always just front light stuff because it looks so awesome. Like I can't help it, right? And so we left that front row of trees dark in the front, which was really cool because just seeing that in person, how you could front light it, and the average Joe would be like, yeah, it looks killer. But then when we cut off the front row, it really did create that depth.
Absolutely.
That was like how like that's so obvious now, but like it really took me 15 years to learn that. Like,
Right. Well, that's the cool thing about it. And the more you get involved, and I wish in my first and second, even third year, had been going to AOLP, been more involved with traveling to these different events and being involved in that way, because I think it would have propelled me a lot quicker. Although I'm happy with the growth that we're having and had. Um, but to learn stuff like that, you really have to have some discipline, because I'm the same way. I'm like, oh, that's gorgeous. Let's light that. Oh my goodness. But you're talking about shadowing, and you're talking about some pattern. You're talking about, like you said, depth and perception of that depth, and what are we trying to accomplish with this? What's the lighting intent here? What's the intention? Oh, they're worshiping whatever in that. Okay.
Yeah.
So how do we light it? Like a moonlight, or I mean, how? And I think you guys did an amazing job. That was tough. And I think even Jan was like, "That's way too bright. We got to take it down." She was right. She ended up, I mean,
I know. I was like, okay, she's right.
We'll say that a lot for a long time, won't we?
Yeah. I actually liked getting roasted by her because it's kind of a good reality check, and I'm like, okay, here we go. Let's go. And then all of a sudden I'm like 10 seconds in and she's like, no, it's not moonlighting. And I'm like, right. I mean, I didn't mean, what is it called? So,
I don't know. Downlighting?
yeah, it was, I should remember it because I got roasted in front of everybody, but it was like a dappled downlight effect.
Downlight. Yeah.
Dappled downlight. I can't even remember. I should, but
Yeah.
I think I blacked out. I was like, oh, well, it's not moonlighting. I've been saying moonlighting for a long time.
Oh boy, that was
So
good.
note, if you're listening to this, don't say the word moonlighting in front of Jen.
And I think I did. So hopefully she's not. Is she commenting anywhere on this? So,
Dude, you were a smooth criminal. I was just like, look at this guy.
That's great.
It's like right in there. That's one thing I learned is that if I look back at my previous projects, I'm like, oh wait, this has like some of the things that I learned. Like it has balance, it has depth, it has these things, right? It has rhythm and balance. But that was just on accident, But if I were to teach someone now, let's say I'm a mentor for like Mark or something one day, I'm like, yeah, see, what I wanted to do here was create rhythm and balance. Like, no, like it wasn't intentional, but it's cool to look back and see how I could have improved and been like, oh, I could have done this, could have taken this down here. Okay, yeah, there's a huge tree here, which I'm addicted to. I had to light it, I had no choice. But now maybe I wouldn't light it because it throws off the balance of the property, and I'm trying to get them over here. So just it is really, really good stuff. It's not going to change the way I I think it changed a little bit of the way I teach, but my overall like strategy of like, nope, guys, you need to understand marketing, you need to understand pricing, sales, all these things.
Absolutely.
Maybe you don't want to call it sales, but you're selling a design, you're selling yourself. Like you have to get very persuasive with people.
Yeah.
It changed a little bit because I want to understand that design mind that I wasn't born with. You know what I mean? So
there's no virtue in Van Gogh dying poor. And now his artwork goes for millions and millions of dollars. It's like if somebody gave him how to tweet out, his painting, right? But your end of it is so important. If we didn't market ourselves, if we didn't show what we do, if we didn't invest in photos, we didn't invest in, having a proper website, if we didn't invest in Google search, if we didn't do some of these things in advertising, and even invest in you as mentoring my son-in-law, and soon to be, you'll be mentoring Tyler as well. I mean, that's an investment. And it's a wise investment, because you can be the greatest designer in the world, but if nobody really knows about you and you're just working by referrals, that's great. If you don't want to grow, that's fine. To each their own. But if you want to grow, you got to get the other aspect of this whole thing.
Yeah, no, I love it. Well, it's been awesome getting to know you. I'm looking forward to continuing our relationship.
Awesome.
Meeting Andy, your son-in-law, was awesome, and his energy is, I mean, just so cool. It speaks a lot about the culture that you're building over there. You guys have had amazing success. I mean, seriously, like you don't measure success only in revenue and stuff like that, but you've had some great revenues. You've got a team. It's not just John out there doing the designs, doing the installs, answering the phones,
Right.
ordering, like doing all this stuff. You have an actual business, which is so exciting. Like
Yes.
that's what entrepreneurship is supposed to be about. It's supposed to be fun, right?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
So
Mm.
congrats to you for all your success, man. I'm a super fan. I'm a
Awesome.
John Martin super fan.
Oh, you're too kind. We're a fan of yours, buddy. I appreciate your investment and our guys and looking to keep this legacy going.
Sweet, man. Well, like you said, it is a legacy. It's you're building this not just for you today, but 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20 years down the road.
Yes.
I just want to be one of your kids. How do I sign up?
You already are, man. You already are.
Yes. That's awesome. Well, thanks again for taking the time out of your day to be on the show.
Thank you so much.
We'll definitely have to have you back on again. Thanks a ton,
Okay.
John.
All right. See you, buddy.
All right, everyone. Have an awesome week. Don't forget to keep moving forward. Go out there and get inspired by Mr. John Martin.